Bowling with the Fat?
Bowling with the Fat?
Get fat.
Got it.
Hello.
This lane, I think.
I would like to challenge Matt Bozak.
Scotty Bowling.
Jason Belmonte.
Hey everybody, good Thursday evening and welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. This is actually going to be the last Thursday that we do one of these for a while. I actually bowl league on Thursdays during the season, and as we speak right now, my league meeting is going on. Caught the beginning of that and came back in time for the show. But past this week, Thursday is bowling night. So we will have live shows typically on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, depending on guest availability. So those of you who also bowl Thursday, come check it out live on one of those other days. And if you don't and can't make it, you can always check these out on replay. YouTube will hold on to them for as long as YouTube is a thing, which I'm hoping is a long, long time, because I really enjoy doing them, and I hope you enjoy the content. So let's get it started. Should Pete be in the main field? And by the main field, I'm talking about the US Open in 2024. Lots of bowlers on social media have given their 2 cents about this after Pete's social media post early on in the week. He posted to Instagram on Tuesday saying, quote, "All right, this is my bid to bowl the 2024 US Open. Last year, I guess I didn't have the criteria to bowl the US Open, but then again, Junior Team USA had a better criteria than I did. I have 5 US Opens. How many US Opens does Junior Team USA have? So, Chad, this is my bid to you. I'm asking now, do I have a criteria to bowl, or is it illegal issue?" Pete has won the US Open 5 times, as he mentioned, most recently in 2012, resulting in "Who do you think you are? I am." But USBC's criteria for 2023 includes winners of the US Open in the last 10 years. No word on criteria for the 2024 event just yet on the USBC US Open page, which says the 2024 event will be at Royal Pin Woodland in Indianapolis on dates to be determined. So I reached out to both USBC and PBA Commissioner Tom Clark about it. Haven't heard from USBC just yet, but Clark said in a message that, quote, "He'll never PTQ and shouldn't have to. It's USBC running the event, but BPAA could probably give him an exemption. Hopefully they do the right thing." Weber has 37 titles on the PBA Tour, his most recent coming in 2013. He also has 14 on the PBA 50 Tour, including the Bud Moore PBA 50 Players Championship, a little less than 2 weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. Should Pete be in the main field? You can weigh in the comments if you like, or the live chat if you're watching live. We also have his post up on our Facebook group, so feel free to comment there with your thoughts on that as well. Well, episode 89 guest Tom Hess is now PBA Hall of Fame eligible after his most recent win on the PBA 50 Tour. Hess qualified 5th in the Fort Myers Lightning Strikes Classic. Then he ran the ladder, defeating Chris Barnes 194-167. He won $7,500 and his 5th PBA 50 Tour title. He also has 2 major wins on the tour, so congratulations to Mr. Hess on that huge win. C via 300 bowler says he still brings in a crowd. That's for sure. He does. As he said after the Bud Moore tournament, you may love me, you may hate me, but you watched me. And he is definitely must-see TV. So we'll see what happens with that, and whether he gets to compete in the 2024 US Open. Well, Bowling with the Fef is sponsored by Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet is a local company, local to me anyway. They are based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, distributing salsa and a whole lot more to stores in more than 38 states and Canada. If you want it and you're in Columbus, Ohio, you can look for it at Whole Foods or some other smaller stores, or you can stay online, go to chipmagnetsalsa.com, and order, get your fix there. If you're ordering $30 or more and it's your first time ordering, we've got a deal for you. You can enter the promo code BWTF2023 at checkout. You get 20% off your purchase of $30 or more. Limit one order per email address. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards. And thank you, as always, to Chip Magnet for supporting Bowling with the Fef and bowling in our community. Well, our guest tonight is coming off yet another stellar season on the PBA Tour, but Chris Vi has been stacking great seasons for a while now. He's the 2021 U.S. Open champ. He's got 2 televised 300 games. He also has an all-events eagle in 2021 for good measure. Chris is joining us from Blacklick, Ohio tonight, and he is joining us live in an episode that we are calling an early start. And we'll get to that part in a little bit. But first, welcome to Bowling with the Fef, Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate the time. I'll kind of get into the circumstances behind this in a little bit. But I wanted to start out by talking with you about a couple of social media posts that Jason Belmonte made this past weekend. He's been talking about two-handed bowling. Of course, he's a two-hander, as are you. He prompted a discussion on whether how he throws the ball with two hands is legit, as he says. And he went on to say that something that he can say is that has truly opened his eyes is that maybe the way he bowls is much closer to being fully accepted than not. He says this is really awesome to see, not just for him, but for the many who have adopted his style, especially the younger generation. He says our sport needs more love and less not love. So I want to kind of go back to that first point that he made. Do you feel like the way that he and you bowl is much closer to being fully accepted than not at this point?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think the further it goes on, I think the further the, I guess, kind of shock of the change is gone on. I think the more accepted people are. I think for the first few years there, I think there was, the traditionalist. I think we're hoping that there was going to be some sort of rule change to take that out of play, and it wasn't going to be an issue. But now it's been about 14 years or so since he kind of bursted on the PBA scene. So. Yeah, I mean, it's here to stay. As you watch, going around youth bowling, I mean, man, it's getting to where it's, almost 75% of the youth boys are being two-handed. And I mean, now it's getting probably even into the 10 to 20% of the girls are being two-handed. So it's just growing so rapidly in the youth that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be here to stay for a while. And I mean, there's always going to be some haters. There's always going to be some, people that, don't necessarily agree with it. But it's definitely, as time goes on, it's going to get more and more acceptable, and there'll be a little less of the nonsense being thrown around.
Sure. I can remember early on in my run of this show asking former UW Whitewater coach Sean Walkner about coaching two-handers. Do you feel like there is adequate coaching for the folks who bowl that way?
It's getting there. It's getting there. I mean, it's obviously way better than it was probably, when, they said they started the show about 3 years ago. Even 3 years ago, it's probably better than what it is now. Or I'm sorry, it's better now than what it is. Yeah. And it's just one of those, we're figuring out more about the game. We're understanding it a bit better. There's some smarter kind of people diving a little bit deeper into what makes, some people successful and what doesn't make them successful. And, I've worked with Mark Baker quite a bit, and he's, really started to study the two-handed game and, figuring out the main points that seem to be common in all of the touring professionals. So it's, yeah, I mean, obviously more and more two-handers are coming out. It's similar to one-handed when there's no real true way of bowling. I mean, everyone's going to have their own unique style. Mm-hmm. But the kind of the main key points that most people need to have to be successful, we're starting to figure those out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the how fast can we spread the word of what those things are, and how can we get to coaches and be able to have them be able to coach it the correct way as well. So it's definitely going in the right direction, but it probably still be some time before you can get some real good coaching in a lot of different places.
Sure. This past weekend, I was watching the live stream of the 11th Frame Open with Jeff Riggles and Mark London. And during their conversation, they kind of floated a suggestion out there that perhaps EJ Tackett could be the last or one of the last PBA players of the year to bowl traditionally, one-handed. What do you think about that?
I don't know about that. I mean, it probably isn't terribly far off. I mean, I guess you could probably say that, there may only be a handful of different guys, throughout the next, 10 or 20 years. But, I mean, I don't think one-handed will ever go away, right? I mean, it's just, I don't think it's ever just going to completely disappear. But, I mean, obviously, if you look at points rankings, if you look at just the PBA Tour in general, like it's somewhat top heavy with two-handers, and but then I mean if you look at the broad field in general, I would say we're definitely still the minority on the PBA Tour. So yeah, I mean I guess it's possible. I would argue against it, and I would think not, but I mean, I guess it's somewhat possible.
Yeah. So we've got a couple comments here. Kristen Anderson saying, "Good evening, gentlemen." Kristen has chimed in for a couple shows previously, so glad to see you on live, Kristen. Flush in the Pocket podcast. Derek Michaud says he is so sick and tired of the bowler world or bowling world and USBC treating Pete like garbage. Let the man bowl. And wants to know how you are. And he says, see you September 21st. Is that when you have the event in Augusta, Maine?
Yes. Yeah. We will be up in Augusta, about an hour or so north of Portland, Maine. So we'll make a little pit stop right before the league. So yeah, we will see you up there, and I'm very excited. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Jay says, hi, Fef. I'm a little late. That's okay. You're getting here as we're hitting our stride. So you can always catch up on the first part of the show on replay if you need to, and not really miss a beat. So I am really thankful that my family allowed me to stop by at Woodland Bowl in Indianapolis in June, so I could pitch the idea of this show to Chris here. Chris was there for the Storm Youth Championships, as you can see right here, but also, again, to do some live streaming, talk to the juniors, and talk to crazy adults like this guy who came up in a Best Dad Ever t-shirt because it was Father's Day. But Chris, tell me about the SYC, the Storm Youth Championships. We've had one in Wisconsin since then. What's it all about, and what was your experience like there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Storm just wants to grow the game at a younger age, and just wanted to give some kids more opportunities to bowl. Obviously, Junior Gold obviously is once a year. That's kind of the kid's dream. That's the big major event every year. But throughout the rest of the year, there's a lot of kids in a lot of different areas that don't really have anything to bowl. There are some locations that have quite a few youth tournaments, and they're able to get some reps in, but there's a lot of areas that they don't have much to bowl in. So Storm wanted to kind of create a kind of a youth tour, if you really want to call it that, and create these events that are giving kids a chance to bowl. They each get a bowling ball if they choose when they sign up for it. So it's getting them some equipment as well as experience. And I'd say we as in Storm bring some sort of professional to every event, whether it be a male or a female, sometimes both, sometimes multiple pros. So we're always having somebody at these events where, the kids can come up, they can ask us any sort of questions they want. They can just hang out with us. On the check-in days, they come in, they have, games set up that, we always play with them, with some sort of outdoor kind of, I guess, cookout type of games. So it's really just a really fun event. And they probably have, I want to say, about 12 or so each year, in that range. Every couple of weeks they kind of have one. And I mean, they're getting hundreds and hundreds of kids, and I mean, they're selling out so quickly that, I mean, it's really incredible to see how many kids are coming out to these events, how many can make it out. And I think it's great. I mean, it's giving these kids kind of pre-college experience that they can really take into even their high school teams. Some aren't even in high school yet. I mean, they have a U12 division. So, I mean, really, these kids are getting a major head start on kind of a national level competition at a young age on challenging patterns. So it's really, really awesome. I mean, they've pretty much been a home run since they started, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. So it's pretty cool to go see.
Yeah, probably also a nice feather in their cap that they're doing it at great venues like Woodland at Schwabenon Bowling Center in the Green Bay, Wisconsin area. That always helps. So yeah, kudos to Storm and everybody involved with that. It was cool to see Brady, the bowling science kid from Storm, throwing the two-handed shots with the gloves. That was awesome. Jay says, nice pick. Yeah, thanks. I never been to Woodland before, so you gotta have
very historic venue.
Yeah, I gotta have some kind of souvenir to take with. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you your thoughts on whether you think Pete Weber should be allowed to bowl in 2024 at the U.S. Open. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides of it. Obviously, I love Pete. I love watching him grow up. It was just one of those, iconic kind of guys, right? He was on so many shows that, you can't really mention professional bowling without, Pete Weber, even going around town, right? If you talk about bowling to people who aren't bowlers, they know, who do you think you are? I am, right? I mean, it's blowing up in the sports world, guys that, are athletes and other sports are saying it now too. So, I mean, it's really cool. So the impact that he's had on the game and being able to kind of globalize it, you can't really argue that. So, I mean, the dude won 5 U.S. Opens, right? You can't really kind of leave him out of it. But at the same side, USBC, they set up these, stipulations to be able to bowl. And, they have their set kind of criteria of what you're supposed to meet. It's been this way for, I think this coming up will be the 7th year that they've had this. So it's not like it's a brand new criteria. So I see that side of it where, his 10th year has run out. But at the same time, I don't see why it can't just be past champions from whenever, right? Sure. Instead of having the 10-year rule. I mean, it's the U.S. Open. It's not like it's, just some random tournament that, anyone can win. So I think the past champions thing, I think, maybe could change to where it's just a lifetime if you've won. Maybe that's a little selfish comment there that maybe we could change that. But I just think it's one of those. I mean, the guy's won 5 of them. You can't not let him bowl. But I do see the rules are rules side of it too. So it's a tough situation, but hopefully they can figure something out.
Yeah, and certainly one we'll be following closely the whole way through. So let's get into your bowling story. And if any of you have read the description to this YouTube page, you'll know that I kind of put some emphasis on this. Did you really start bowling at age 1?
Yeah, I was about 18 months old or so. I pretty much grew up in a bowling alley. My parents didn't own one or anything, but my dad bowled an awful lot, and I was pretty much there all the time watching him bowl. And eventually it was just one of those, hey, we'll stay after, we'll let you bowl a game. And Obviously it started kind of, with a ramp and some help and stuff like that. But yeah, it was one of those. I was always in a bowling center, watching my dad grow up, and I always wanted to be like him. So, I saw him bowling all the time. I wanted to bowl. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was just one of those. I was around it all the time, and once I started being able to bowl, I just fell in love with it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Jay mentions people that don't bowl bring up the who do you think you are? I am when he shares with them, and he's an avid bowler. So there you
Yeah,
go. Kind
yeah.
of emphasizes your point on that. How about getting into juniors? Did you have a pretty robust junior program in Springfield?
No, honestly, not really. I mean, we had a decent program when I was pretty young. I would say kind of the Bantams. I don't know if the name translates to every youth, but it's basically the youngest group of youth bowlers. By the time I aged out of that, we had kind of started to lose quite a bit of the youth bowlers in the area, and um, yeah, it wasn't fantastic just number wise. I mean, the people who ran it, the people who organized it were great. Just didn't have a lot of bowlers in the area, and I mean, where I grew up, it wasn't a big town anyway, so it's not like we had a whole lot of people to pull from.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it was good enough. I mean, the people who ran it were great, and I wasn't too far away from Dayton, which was
Oh, sure.
probably anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, depending on which bowling center. And there's obviously a lot more kids down there, a lot more talent. So when I got a little bit older, I started traveling a bit more down there just to, get some more competition or just, be able to bowl more.
I was going to ask you if C via 300 bowler was you, but I think I'm starting to get who it actually is when he
Yeah.
says dads are awesome and oops, moms are too, because I could see myself making a comment like that. Is that
Yeah.
dad?
Yes. Yeah, that is. Yep. So we have the same first initial. So yeah, I could see where you get a little confused there. But
Sure.
yep. Yep. Mom and dad are watching. I sent them the link right prior to because they're bowling obsessed as well. So they'll tune into anything they possibly can.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing it. Um, so, Springfield, of course, created a Chris Vi Day after you won the US Open. What are some of the memories that you have there that really stick with you?
Honestly, just all of my family being able to show up and kind of support me through that. I mean, um, the ceremony was pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't anything fancy, but just being able to kind of be in a kind of a political, I guess, sort of room and have some the mayor and everyone there involved and declaring it Chris Vi Day. I mean, it's not everyone gets to say they have a day named after him. So, yeah, to think that was ever going to happen was, I mean, never even remotely on my radar. So that was a really cool memory, and I'll remember it for a long time. But yeah, just having my family there, having everyone being able to witness it, and got some great pictures out of it that it'll stick with me for a long time. That's for sure.
Sure. And I guess I'm kind of also referring to maybe bowling memories that, that are special to you in your hometown, like when you were growing up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's where it all started, right? I mean, it's one of those, you never forget where you came from type of deals where, um, you know, there's still plenty of people, I'm only an hour away from where I grew up now. So, I still see plenty of people that, I either grew up bowling with or were a part of the program that I was bowling in. Obviously high school bowling memories were fantastic, leaving school, immediately going to practice or, just yeah, I mean, just the amount of time spent in those bowling centers, you feel like you own the place and you kind of know every which way to go and which lanes are good and which lanes are bad. And yeah, you kind of fall in love with the places. And we only had a couple of options to choose from, so it didn't have too many decisions to make. You kind of went to the close one or the far one, and you went from there. So yeah, it's just that hometown feel and kind of knowing everyone when you go back and visit as well.
Sure. Those of us in Wisconsin have junior tours. Minnesota out east, they've got the JBT. Do you have? Did you have a junior tour to go and compete in when you were in juniors?
Yeah, ours was called the JTBA. Same concept. I mean, we bowled pretty much all around Ohio. We had one or two events in West Virginia every year that was just kind of across the border. And then the MJMA as well up in Michigan. I actually don't believe I ever competed in any of those, maybe one of them. But a lot of the same bowlers bowled in all of them. But I mean, I even bowled against EJ growing up. Like
Oh, cool.
EJ's, probably only 20 or 30 minutes from the border of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he came over, he bowled, I would say maybe a quarter to half of them. He didn't bowl a ton of them, but yeah, I mean, I bowled against EJ growing up, so known EJ for a very long time as well. So it's kind of cool to see some of the youth bowlers and where we are today.
Yeah. You mentioned high school a little bit earlier, and you had quite a high school career with state championships and the whole, kit and caboodle. What was that like for you? And I should say, what was the format like? Because different states do it different ways. I bowled in high school in Minnesota, and it was 100% Baker. But other states have some traditional games or all traditional games.
Yeah, so our matches were always 2 individual games and, well, I guess team games per se. So 2, full team games. And then we had, I believe we had 4 Baker games, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 3 or 4 Baker games. So truly a lot of the score happened in the traditional games. Pretty much it was, most of our matches were already kind of over at that point. We got very fortunate with our high school program. We had a ton of talent throughout, I mean, my entire career and even a little bit after as well. So yeah, we got very fortunate that we had a lot of really good bowlers in our school. And yeah, but once we got to state, our qualifying was actually 3 traditional games. And I think that honestly might have been it for the qualifying. It was kind of a weird way to do it as well, where the 3 traditional games also counted for the individual state titles. So even if you didn't make it to state as an individual, if your team made it, you could still win. So it was kind of funky how it all worked. But then the team, once we cut to the top 8, then it was a bracket best of 5 match play of Baker. So yeah, it was pretty cool once you got into match play that, as a lot of times you don't really get those scenarios and at that age, especially as a team. So it was definitely some pretty cool experiences. We had some really tight matches in both of our title runs and some memorable ones for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a coach?
Yes. We had a coach. His actual name was Ralph Lucas, but we always called him Flip. He was in his early 80s, actually, when he was coaching us. He was kind of a legend around Springfield, and he was actually a professional umpire, believe it or not, for a very long time. But he was always a bowler, always around bowling. But then my dad also helped coach the program, as well as another kid that was 1 year older than me. His dad also helped. So we had some parent help from time to time. But then, Flip was our main head coach.
Yeah. Okay. Jay's chiming in Northern California. He says their junior tour is called JAT. Says his 16-year-old son just won an event 2 weeks ago and received $570 in scholarships. So congratulations to him. Junior Amateur Tour is what JAT stands for. And then we have Jeffrey saying, "Hi, Fef. Love your show. Thank you." Chris, do you roll the pitch black? He says he knows you used to like the fast pitch. What is your 2LS layout and surface preference on urethane? That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah, I do roll the pitch black. Obviously, we didn't really have a choice this year. I wasn't able to throw the fast pitch at all. So if I wanted to throw a urethane ball, I had one option. So I went with it. My 2LS, honestly, I've only used won pitch black pretty much the whole year. It was just a 5x5x3 2LS layout that I used on a lot of different bowling balls. So it was nothing really fancy. It was just kind of a standard kind of, just run of the mill type of layout. But I use a lot of surface. 500 is a pretty common surface that I put on my ball, a urethane ball, I should say.
Okay.
Because obviously the goal of that ball is to get it hooking as early as possible and be as smooth as possible. So we want to make sure that it starts hooking before the end of the pattern, and surface will let that happen for sure. So definitely more surface on the urethane balls than what you would traditionally use.
Sure. Would you say you're more one that basically puts the same layout on each ball and just kind of lets the different characteristics of the different bowling balls kind of make them different, or do you change your layout?
No, I change layouts. Yeah. I feel like even if you let the characteristics of the bowling ball do it, I think it still kind of gets you into a box. And there's just times where you need different layouts. So, there's definitely different layouts in my bag, but nothing really crazy unless we run into a scenario where it's like we're looking for something extremely specific, and then it's like, okay, let's really think outside the box here. But no, I really don't do anything too massively different. Everything's at least kind of in the same general vicinity, but just kind of fine tuning here and there versus for whatever I need.
Sure. Let's see. Derek says he knows he told you in Portland, but he says he had a great time winning a doubles title with Tim Elbrook. He mentions you a bit, or did, when you met. Do you remember meeting Derek Michaud in Portland?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we were actually hanging out right behind where the show was going on at the time. Tim actually is from Springfield as well. So,
cool.
I guess it's a small world. It happens quick. And I was kind of a little taken back when he said Tim, and I was like, oh, I know a Tim Elbrook, and it's not the most common name in the world. So, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly is a small world as far as bowling is concerned. That's for sure. So you advanced through high school. Did you always know you wanted to bowl in college, or was that something that you kind of figured out along the way?
Yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to bowl in college, but it was just one of those. I guess I didn't really get recruited at all.
Yeah.
Being in a small town, I didn't really bowl much nationally growing up. Not until I think 2009, I guess, per se. So that was my junior year of high school.
Okay.
Is kind of when I started bowling bigger things. So I was definitely late to the game, bowling some bigger stuff. So, college coaches really had no idea who I was. Unless they were somewhere in the Ohio area, they didn't really have any idea of who I was. So I put some feelers out there, but I kind of put together like a player highlight package type of deal, and tried to send it to some college coaches, and never really heard anything back. But actually, one of my good friends that I bowled most of those JTBAs with and traveled a lot with, his dad actually ended up getting a college coaching gig, and he was pretty much the only one that recruited me. So it ended up working out pretty well, and I had a really good experience up at Notre Dame, and definitely some friends that I talked to daily from then, and it's one of those things that it felt like I really learned a lot while I was up there, as well as just getting a lot more experience, being able to travel and bowl. And I think the big thing was time management.
Okay.
Obviously trying to get schoolwork done, as well as traveling to these events and bowling. It's definitely kind of gets you into a little better routine.
And we're talking Notre Dame outside of Cleveland, correct? Notre Dame
Yes.
College?
Yeah, Notre Dame College of Ohio. Yeah.
Okay. So I would think that at a school of that size, that you'd have the opportunity to bowl a lot more in a starting lineup than you would at, say, a Nebraska or a Wichita. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, there wasn't too many games I ever sat out in my collegiate career. I mean, we still had a pretty solid team. It was just mostly Ohio kids. On our starting, I'm not sure if we had up until my junior year. I think everyone was from Ohio, and then we had a kid come in from New York, and he was on our starting roster. But yeah, I mean, we were a lot of really just, I mean, even mostly just Cleveland bowlers. Like, it was a very small program. It hadn't been around very long. So I mean, it was just basically it was a bunch of us JTBA bowlers joined up at college, and we started a bowling team, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had a great time. We all knew each other. So team chemistry was great. And I think that really, really helped us to where, we would go bowl these events. It was fun people to travel with. We had fun outside the bowling center. We had fun inside the bowling center. So it made the experience, very, very nice, I should say.
Could you tell that you were growing either in your physical game or mental game because of that competition you were doing in college?
Well, my freshman year, I definitely realized I wasn't as good as I thought I was. That is for sure. That is for sure. Coming off of 2 state championships, I don't like to think so, but my head may have been a little bit bigger than what it probably should have been. And going into college, kind of got a rude awakening there. I think I only averaged like 194 or something like that my freshman year. So I was like, okay, all right, we're in a little different atmosphere here. We're going to have to put in some extra work. And then, kind of put my head down, made some changes, tried to hone in a little bit better. And I was fortunate the last 3 years to make the All-American team. So, I think that first year it was tough, but I think it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the players that I know or have talked to about their experience in college have always seemed to find that as you're bowling in college, you learn to play straighter than maybe you had in the junior tours or in the junior leagues. Did you find that, going up the boards was something that you were able to hone or work on during your college career?
Honestly, not so much. I feel like growing up, I mean, I used to throw the ball very, very hard. So my ball really didn't hook too much anyway. So if I could play straight, I was good. It was when we really had to hook it is when I had the problem, which sounds silly for a two-hander, but I was really good at throwing it straight and hard. So that first year, I was great to start tournaments because I could just throw it as hard as I wanted to, right? Pretty much straight up the lane. I was good. But that transition started to hit, and it was not pretty. So I think the biggest thing I learned in college was how quickly you need to make changes. I mean, you're bowling team games. Like, you're basically bowling league on sport patterns, and you're bowling, double the amount of games. So, you throw a shot, and by the time you throw another shot, it could be 10 minutes. So it's, the lanes get cooked pretty quickly. So the fear of moving too much had to go away pretty quickly. So I think trusting, making moves, being aggressive, making those moves, and kind of committing to them, I think is probably the bigger motivation or bigger things that I learned during college.
Yeah. Did you guys have a college coach?
Yeah. Yeah. So my first year was Jeff Robinson. That was my best friend growing up. Or best friend bowling growing up, I should say. That was, it was his dad. He was the one that recruited me there. But he only coached my freshman year. So after that, the last 3 years was Stacy Hoover, who is actually the granddaughter-in-law of Dick Hoover. So pretty cool little bowling history there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had Dick Hoover lanes up there in Brunswick, Ohio, that we got to visit. Above ground ball returns, wood lanes. Pretty cool. It was a pretty cool little place.
I bet. So you are, proceeding through college. Like you said, you're getting these All-American awards. You're competing with the best. And it comes time, or I'm sure you thought that it was time to kind of make a decision. Do I go on the traditional track and become a weekend warrior, or go to tour? How did that process happen for you, and what were the factors that eventually landed you in the PBA tour full time?
Yeah, honestly, through college, did not plan on becoming a professional bowler. It was not my number one plan to be on the PBA tour. I loved watching it. I loved bowling. It just kind of wasn't the route I thought I was going to take, and graduated. Basically, I moved back home with my parents, and then I was like, I don't know if I want a full-time job. The reality kind of set in. I was like, okay, am I actually going to start with a 9 to 5 job and just bowl on the weekends or bowl league or whatever it was? And um, I talked it over with my parents. I had started working when I was pretty young, and I worked through college as well, so I had some money saved up. And I looked at them. I said, hey, I want to at least give this a shot. Was it May, pretty much when we graduated. So I was like, I want to at least until August or September or whatever it was. I said, I want to give myself a few months. I said, I know there's a bunch of these tournaments lined up through the summer. There's some in New York and Ohio and Kentucky and blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, I want to give myself a chance. So I don't want to get a job yet. I want to try this bowling thing for a few months. I want to see how it goes. I kind of set a dollar amount aside that I was okay with spending. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then at the end of these couple months, we'll kind of reassess where I am and we'll go from there. And luckily that summer went very well for me. I won a few tournaments and bowled really well. And at the end of the few months, I talked it over with my parents again. I was like, I think I'm just going to keep riding the wave until it kind of comes crashing down a little bit, and then we'll kind of go from there. And I guess we're still riding the wave so far. So far so good. But yeah, I was very fortunate that my parents were understanding that. They didn't kick me out. They allowed me to stay. And after about eight months or so, it kind of just became a spot that my mail went to, because I was traveling so much and bowling so many different tournaments that even though I lived at home, I really wasn't living there very much. So yeah, I was just very fortunate. They were super supportive and basically gave me every possibility that I could imagine. So.
Yeah. And it's cool that you had that measured approach. You understood that, this was a risk, and you knew what you could put into it and not, and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I was an accounting major. So the money side of things was definitely in the back of my head. So I wanted to make sure that, I was comfortable. I wasn't risking, really anything. And I just wanted to make sure that, I was going to be comfortable, and then we went from there. So yeah, I was definitely thinking my way through there.
Yeah. Jay says he is not a fan of the team format used in collegiate bowling, and I'm pretty sure he's brought that up before. He says he'd rather see as much emphasis put on the individual results, but that's just him. He says, do you have any thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, I mean, if you want to make it like a collegiate bowling tour, I mean, it honestly makes it tough for the schools, really, because then they really have no leverage of recruiting anyone, because you can go to whatever school you want to if you're bowling individually. So that there's no merit to the schools being able to have a great bowling team or a coach to be able to say, hey, I mean, the coach maybe has a little bit of pull because, I can take your game and change it to blah, blah, blah. But it's not like, hey, I built a fantastic program here. Like, look at Wichita State.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those, yeah, hey, come bowl with the greatest bowlers and, the greatest collegiate bowlers, because everyone wants to go to Wichita State. Well, now you're an individual. It's like, I'd really not go to the middle of Kansas. Maybe I'll, stay in Ohio and, I'll bowl the same tournaments they're going to bowl because it's individual. So
Sure.
it would
Yeah.
be cool to have like a, to see some more individual college tournaments. But that as college bowling as a whole, I don't think so. I definitely would not have had the same experience that I remember if it was individualized. And it starts to get a really bad taste, or I could see it getting a really bad taste. Teammates not really being teammates. You become much more individualized, and yeah, I mean, it would be cool to have a couple maybe throughout the year, maybe a couple of individual tournaments, but no, I can't imagine it being that way as a whole.
It would really take a monumental effort, I think. And plus, the people who are in it, you had your experience. I bowled for 3 years in college, others who have, boy, you talk to any of them and it's like those were the good old days.
Yeah, literally. I mean, those were the best memories. I mean, I literally still have a group chat. There's 4 guys that I bowled in college with. Yeah, I graduated 10 years. Well, it will be 10 years next year. I graduated college, and these guys are a couple years older than me. I only bowled 1 or 2 years with them, and literally 10 years later, we have still texted every single day.
Wow.
Like, I mean, it's been probably 12 or 13 years that we've had this group chat, and we've texted each other every single day. So it's just things like that I bring up to people about when they ask me, how did you enjoy your college bowling experience? It's like, you really just can't describe it unless you've lived it. And it's one of the, really the best 4 years of my life. So it's really, really cool.
Sure. And at the same time, there are all tournament teams, ISCs every
Yeah.
year. So there are individual elements mixed in there as well. Jeffrey wants to know if you ever changed anything in your physical game or approach in the past couple of years.
Well, the end of 2018, I actually started to slide. I planted at the foul line all the way up until pretty much the end of 2018. I think it was like September-ish, because that was when the U.S. Open was still in October. And that was my first event actually sliding at the foul line. So, those first couple years on tour they were not good. It was kind of reminded me of my freshman year of college. It's a massive learning curve out there bowling with those guys. Just how fastly the lanes break down. What you have to do. You have to be able to change ball speeds at an instant, change rotations, have no fear of just changing bowling balls. So it happens so fast out there. I mean, you get to the point where everything kind of starting to slow down, and you kind of understand things a little bit better. But yeah, those first couple of years were brutal. So I knew something had to change, and I had a really good support system around me. And the hardest part for me was throwing the ball slower. Yeah. So that was kind of the main goal. And my group kind of came to the consensus that learning how to slide was going to be able to control the ball speed a bit better, whether it be faster or slower. And implemented that into my game, and that's kind of when things started to take off. So it was good.
End of the day, I'm guessing your knees might thank you for that too.
Yeah, exactly. That was also a nice side effect of being able to start sliding. Is I really never had too much knee pain. Occasionally, if I was bowling a massive amount of games or something like that, but I really didn't have too much. But yeah, I mean, now it's zero, no matter how much I bowl. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Derek has an interesting question. He wants to know why you are so tough to beat on PBA Pro Bowling 2023 on Xbox One.
They just try to make the game as realistic as possible. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I actually bought the game just because, to say you're in a video game is pretty awesome. So, I wanted to mess around and play it for a while. And every time I bowled myself, my video game self beat my regular self every time. I mean, I just can't beat that guy. So I don't know if it's like you know, I don't know exactly how the game works, but I don't know if it's, certain players for certain, tournaments or whatever just are, programmed to be better or whatever it may be. But yeah, there's some people in that game that are just, I feel like, yeah, every time you bowl them, you can't beat them. So but it's a really fun game. That's for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Kristen says she wishes her dad was more supportive of her and her bowling dreams. And I feel for you because my father was big into bowling when I got big into bowling, and it sounds like yours but was kind of already there too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without that, it's really hard to, obviously continue to pursue your dreams, if you don't have that support. And yeah, like I said, if my family didn't support me the way they did, there's no chance that, I'm here today talking to you about, my career and the things that I've been able to accomplish. So, yeah, having a support system around you that supports you and what you want to do and your goals, I feel like that's, probably the most important thing that you can have. So, yeah, it's really sucks when you hear some stories about, family not agreeing with their choices or whatever it may be. And yeah, you always feel for them. It's never good.
Yeah, for sure. So Jay says individual results combined for the team total, like a league or bracket style competition. Yeah, like I said, you got to have buy-in. You got to have the buy-in from the masses.
Yeah, the individual competition as team totals kind of already exist. I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Yep.
Like, you're bowling league basically. So like, I'm bowling my game, you're bowling your game, and then we'll add them up, and you got 3 other teammates. So I mean, you have team games. Like,
Right.
It's not like it's just 100% Baker all the time. It's just, obviously, once you get into match play, having those be individual games, it just takes so long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but it just takes so long. I don't know if you could finish a tournament in a weekend,
Right.
unless it's just strictly total pinfall.
Yeah.
And then you don't really bowl match play until, whatever the time being. But could you imagine sectionals? What are you going to do?
Take a long time.
I mean, what are you going to do? 10 or 12 games of individual bowling on each day? Like, 6 games and then re-oil and then 6 games or something like that. I mean, that weekend's already insanely long enough. I don't know how you would change it to make it too much shorter.
Right.
I mean, unless you just really cut down on the bowling in general and just make them all team games. So
Sure. Kristen says that she's a bowling brat because of her dad, but he can be really tough on her sometimes. That's why she quit back in high school. Looking back, she wishes she hadn't. Yeah, and she says thanks for the advice. She says she's learned to push past adversity and focus on her bowling goals, not what her dad wants for her. So that's cool. I mean, everybody's situation's a little different, and it's tough enough to to meet the goals that you set for yourself in bowling, let alone to have an obstacle like that in you. So I'd say keep fighting the good fight, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to have your goals, you got to set your goals and go out there and do whatever you can to achieve them. So in the end of the day, it's what you want, and just go out there and make it happen.
Yeah. It's a good point in the show to remind folks that if they haven't subscribed yet, please do. On the road to 2,000 subscribers, you can hit that little logo in the right corner. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me create this content. And we have passed 1,500 now, so getting closer and closer, and hoping to reach those next milestones. You talked about how you're still riding that wave. 2021 had to be the absolute crest of that wave, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What was it about that year?
Well, honestly, it started pre-COVID. Obviously, we were talking a little bit before the show came on about COVID, and just kind of how it was just a weird time, and you don't really remember much before it. And but honestly, yeah, it happened pretty much right before the world shut down. And I made the U.S. Open show in 2019. out there in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it was just one of those events where, yeah, there was really no sign leading up to it that I was like, oh, I'm close, I'm close, I'm close. I mean, the year prior, when I learned how to slide, I actually finished 11th that year. That was my first ever tournament bowling after I started sliding. I finished 11th. I was like, okay, this is a start. This is a start. But the first part of the year, bowling on tour, it wasn't anything fantastic. I mean, it was okay. But I believe that was February time, maybe early February time, when we bowled the U.S. Open there in Lincoln. And it was weird. It was like one of those tournaments. I mean, it's such a long tournament. I mean, it's 56 games, but it's, for some reason, it felt like I just blinked and I was like, oh, I made the TV show. Like there was no, like, the middle of the tournament, like, oh man, like I'm bowling really well. Let me see if I can hold on to this. It was just like, I was just bowling, and I just happened to be bowling well. And to me, it just felt like, okay, like I just saw what I was seeing that week. It just seemed to be right. I seemed to be bowling well. I just kind of went with it. I was just going. I was, reading my ball, doing whatever, and made moves off that, and just kind of went with it. And at the end of the week, I was on the TV show. So I think that gave me a massive amount of confidence. 56 games. It's not like it was a 10-game sprint to get to a TV show that I just happened to match up on. I mean, it was 4 different patterns, 56 games, 24 games of match play. So it was some really good bowling to be able to get onto that show. So, and then going into the World Series, actually, that was kind of when COVID kind of shut down. But prior to that, we had the Cheetah, the Chameleon, and the Scorpion. I made the top 16 match play in all 3 of those. I would have made the USA versus the World, but COVID shut that one down. Yeah. And then I made, obviously, the cut for the World Championships. We bowled those 24 games of match play. I made that TV show. So it was just, it was just kind of a wave of like, oh, okay, like we're figuring something out, like, and it really was. It just kind of felt like everything happened super quick, and it was just you kind of got lost in the moment. You were just rolling with it. You were going with it, and it just kept working out. So yeah, I feel like those 2 experiences really gave me a bunch of confidence. And then COVID happened. Obviously, I was pretty bummed. I mean, obviously, it was a worldwide pandemic. It's not like my bowling was the most important thing in the world, but at the same time, I felt like I was going up, and then the world shuts down. I'm like, oh man, like, is this a sign? Is this a sign where it just, like, as soon as it starts to get good, it everything crumbles? So, but yeah, I tried to bowl as much as I possibly could, given the circumstances. And once we were able to kind of come back from that, I just kept rolling with it. I just kept going with it. I was like, okay, everyone else is going to be in the same situation I am. It's not like anyone's going to have an advantage coming out from this. So let's just keep doing what we're doing. And it just seemed like everything kind of clicked that year. We used used the momentum and the confidence from, the tournaments prior that, I knew I was good enough to be there. I knew I was good enough to make these shows and continue to bowl well. And it just kind of felt like I belonged. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's got to be a good feeling. And then in July, you kind of really put your stamp on the USBC Open Championships. So, you're in the final few days of competition, and Sean Rash has got a big number. Take me through what your OC was like and how you were able to, to come out on top there.
Yeah, we were actually in the final team squad, and we were in the final singles and doubles squad. So we were in the very last 2 events of the year. And honestly, that tournament, like, I bowl for a living, right? So I don't need, but I'm going out there. I want to make money.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those, I want to bowl well, I want to make money. There's, a bunch of side action and brackets and jackpots and stuff like that you can really make a good chunk of change when you go out there and bowl. But at the same time, like the group I go out with, we don't go out there to try to win. Like if we all happen to bowl really well at the same time, we may have a chance to win. But we're not trying to stack our teams with the best bowlers in the world. It's me, Mikey, and Darren Tang, and then it's a large group of kind of the Tang family / family friends. So a lot of people from the West Coast. And we're starting to slowly kind of grow this group that we've got. And I think we're actually adding like 4 teams next year. So we're going to be up to 10. But really, it's just a super, super fun group of people to hang out with. We have a great time. We go out there, we usually have some sort of golf trip or something like that planned in the books as well. So I think just going out there and, I mean, when you get to the lanes, obviously you want to bowl well, but at the same time, surrounding yourself with a bunch of people that, are, making jokes and having fun. And it's just a little easier to bowl. I mean,
Sure.
you're not so like, hey, like we have to break down whatever if we don't, and then everything's super serious and you just feel like, everything's so tense. I mean, yeah, I'm bowling on PBA Tour all year long. It's kind of one of those, I don't want to say it's a fun event because it's a very serious and very historic event. But at the same time, I have a lot of fun when I go out there, and it's a group that I really enjoy hanging out with. So I look forward to that event every year, and it's more so for the people that I bowl with rather than the bowling itself. So, yeah, that year, I mean, it just so happened that I've seemed to bowl really well at the stadium in Vegas. So it was there. They seemed a little on the easier side. I mean, obviously putting up a big score like that, they're obviously going to feel pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, it just felt like everything lined up. I threw 2 bowling balls. I threw one for, I think, 1 game of team and maybe a couple frames of the second game. I immediately switched and threw that for the last 2 games. And then for singles and doubles, I threw the same ball I started with for the first game. And the last 5 games of singles and doubles, I threw the same ball that I switched to. So it just seemed it's kind of one of those instances you just kind of match up and everything seems to want to go your way. So
yeah, and you broke 2,300, which I mean doesn't happen all that often.
Having done that in our state tournament,
and
not even close.
Yeah, and like I said, Rash was the all events leader. You knock him off right at the end, and then Rash comes on my show. So of course, we had to ask him about it. Here's what he had to say following that. He said he wasn't really tuned into the scores or checking results or anything like that. But then people started to, hey, Vi's doing this, and this. So he did end up paying attention. Here's what he said happened after the fact.
I put up a great number that would win just about any other year. And, end of the day, I'm going to look back on it and say, I bowled really good. I'm really proud of what I did. Hats off to Chris Vi for bowling just a tad better. Score-wise, he beat me by 30-something pins or whatnot. And congratulations. I'll say it here on the air, and I don't know how many people know this, but I called him, hours after he beat me, congratulated him and said, nicely done. Because it's hard to bowl 2,300. It's hard to bowl 2,200, if not 2,100 at the USBC Championships.
You remember that phone call?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it didn't even feel like an hour after we're done. It was all pretty quick. Obviously, there's quite a few people, and our group is fairly large as well, so we're getting a lot of congratulations. But yeah, absolutely, he called me. It wasn't too long after we were done, and I think we bowled like the 9 or 9:30 shift. So I mean, it was late in Vegas, so it had to been 2 a.m. ish, back in Chicago where he was. So yeah, it was definitely a late night call from him. But yeah, 100%. He definitely called, congratulated me it was very nice and very professional move there from Sean. Yeah.
Yeah. We've we've got the PBA league coming up, so I do want to get into that a little bit. You were kept on the Silver Lake Adams Splitters for this year's league. Again next month in Portland. So I reached out to Coach because he's the one who kept you, and Bakes said that you had an amazing year. He said he kept you and let his friend Chris Barnes go into the draft. He said that you just earned that spot. Tell me about that. What was it like to, when you found out that you were being kept and to have someone like Bakes, do the keeping?
Yeah. So that was it was an interesting year when we kind of let Barnes go there. It was, myself and Doherty kind of had both a really, really good year at the same time. And then obviously we have Jesper on the team, so you can't really let Jesper go. So it's one of those, it just kind of lined up where it's like, we have a bunch of really good bowlers, but you can't keep them all. So what are we going to do? And how are we going to be able to kind of keep this team together as much as possible? And he felt like keeping me was the best answer, and he thought he was going to be able to grab Barnes back because that was kind of the year Barnes was struggling a bit, and unfortunately it didn't work out the way we had intended to, and Barnes got snagged up there. But I guess if someone tells you, hey, I'm gonna keep you over Chris Barnes, who PBA Hall of Famer and whatever, it's definitely a pretty cool thing, but at the same time, it's tough. It's you can keep 3, and obviously these are 50 of the best bowlers in the world, so it's not like being able to keep anyone or have to get rid of anyone's an easy decision. So, sure. But I'm excited for the 2 guys that we drafted this year, and hopefully we put up a little better fight because the last couple of years hasn't been so good.
Sure. Bakes also, I asked him how often you guys work together, ahead of this thing. He says you work together when your schedules permit. He says Tom Doherty, same thing. He says TD, Vi, and Jesper are all great bowlers and great people, and it makes his job a blast.
Yeah, we've actually done a 2-handed clinic the last few years out in Las Vegas together. So we've worked that together. It's kind of how, it's kind of starting to grow where we're learning a little more about the 2-handed game. It's myself, Simonson, Chris Sloan, Kyle Troop. So we got some really good 2-handed players in that room that we can all kind of learn from, all kind of talk to, kind of see what's going on and what's similar, what's not similar. We look at video of other players. So after last year, I didn't bowl great. I bowled, I felt like it was a pretty poor year. I finished like 24th or so in points. But coming off the year prior, I finished 2nd. So it really felt like quite a letdown. So I knew I needed some work. I've worked with Coach Bakes in the past. And, he's affiliated with the Team USA program as well. So I called him up. I said, hey, I know we're doing this clinic in September. I said, is it possible that I can just go back with you to California and work together, and then I can just fly home after that? So he said, yeah, absolutely. So we worked that event together. We took about a 4-hour drive back to his place, and next day we went into his Westpac training center out there in California and got some work in. Felt like we figured it out, and this year was quite a bit better than last year, so definitely went in the right direction. So he's an amazing guy to work with. He's honestly just as passionate about your game as you are, because he really does enjoy watching people grow and get better, and he's a competitor. He's a competitor, so he's not one to just show up and say, all right, guys, here's who's bowling 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Go have fun. No, he's all in 100%. and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I had the pleasure to speak with him when he was doing one of his clinics in Minnesota over the winter. That video is on our channel. I'd highly recommend folks check it out. Man, I just scratched the surface with him. He's got stories. Oh, I can't imagine how awesome those car rides must have been.
I feel like I don't even talk when I'm with him because I'm just like, dude, just keep going. Like, just keep going. I'm all ears. Like, just keep going.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Derek says thank you. He's going to watch the Rash episode after this. That's awesome. I believe it's number 36. Jay says Sean sounds like he's still not happy about that loss. You know, when you're a competitor, you hate to lose, right? I'm assuming you hate to lose too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, especially when I'm not sure when he actually bowled, but I mean, it's the last squad, right?
I think it was only a few weeks before then.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, it's the last squad of the tournament. It's like one of those, like, I know, whoever bowls really well throughout that entire year, they're score watching. It feels like you're going forever. And then I feel it's like the last couple of days, you're like, oh, well, it can't happen now, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, there's only a couple squads left. I'm sure everyone has a chance is probably has already bowled. So yeah, I mean, it's probably a little extra kind of sting to it that it happened on the very last squad, but yeah, he definitely reminded me that he still made more money than me in side action and stuff like that. So even though I won the Eagle, he still made more money than I did. So he reminds me of that. That's for sure.
That's funny. Yeah, Kristen says there's a good chance she won't be coming to Portland this year, but wishes you all the best.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Sorry to have missed you this year, but hey, maybe you'll figure it out. Maybe you can make up the trip. You still got about a month to figure it out.
Yeah, or there's always future years. I doubt they're going anywhere, right?
I wouldn't see why we'd go anywhere else. I mean, it would be pretty cool if the league expanded, maybe a couple of different events throughout the year. But yeah, I mean, you got to have one in Portland, right? I mean, they built kind of that venue specifically for that. At least the extra venue specifically for that. And I mean, just the way the fans are up there and the experience up there, you can't pass it up.
Yeah. You had mentioned a little bit about your experience on Team USA. You just came off of something I believe called Team USA Camp. What's that all about? And how was it for you this time around?
Yeah, so really it's, we consider it training camp, but it's basically a week that the entire team can get together. We can train together. We can practice together. The coaches can actually, get with us, work on our physical games, do whatever needs to be done to kind of help improve us. But at the same time, we're building team chemistry because it's hard, right? We go from bowling against each other as, competitors every single week to going to an event where now we need to be teammates. So it does make it challenging at times where you go from an individual sport to a team sport with the same people. And then obviously we always kind of have some either younger guys or older guys that are on the team as well that, we don't get to see nearly as often. Like we had Brandon Bone and Brandon Bonta on the team this year. We saw them at US Open and the Masters, but, they're bowling college all the other time. So, we don't really ever get to see them. Even though most of us know them, it's still one of those, got to build some sort of chemistry together. And then, we had John Janowitz on the team this year. Same thing, doesn't bowl on our tour very often. Now he's bowling the senior tour. We all know JJ and, we all love JJ, but at the same time, it's hard to get everyone into the same room and to be able to kind of, come together and grow together and learn together. So, yeah, it's just all about, trying to gain some knowledge, working with the mental game coach, building some, doing some team chemistry or team building exercises, stuff like that to just kind of grow together. And, unfortunately, we don't have any more events to bowl this year. I think Brandon Bonta and Jacob will be going to the Pan Am Games. That was already settled after Team USA trials and Masters qualifying. But yeah, as far as any more team events, unfortunately, we don't have anything the rest of the year. But it's still always nice to get to have a week where we can basically we just bowl, wake up, bowl, eat, bowl some more, do some team building exercises, bowl some more, eat, go to sleep. So
Yeah,
it's a fun week.
for sure. You have a venture called TV Bowling. What is that, and how does content creation factor into that for you?
Yeah. So right here,
There you go. TV Bowling Supply.
TV bowling supply. Yeah. So it is myself and Michael Tang. We have a pro shop here in Columbus, Ohio at Holiday Lanes. And we also have a YouTube channel. So Mikey's pretty much in charge of the YouTube channel. He's a little bit more on the creative side than I am. And yeah, it's just one of those things we like to do. We like to have fun. We also like to teach some people about whether it be, something in the pro shop or bowling ball layouts or surface or whatever it may be. We're, hopefully going to expand, that side of the channel a little bit more, where it's a little more educational, but at the same time, you're still the funny videos or vlogs or ball reviews or, whatever, people would like to see. But yeah, it's been pretty cool. We bought the pro shop actually right before COVID shut down. So 2019. And then, yeah, we were open for about 8 months. COVID shut down and we didn't think we made a very good decision, but yeah, it's awesome now. We're continuing to grow, continuing to get better, and it's a lot of fun. So it's been really good.
Gotta ask, better YouTuber, Mike or Darren?
Yeah, still gonna have to go with Darren. Yeah, still gonna have to go with Darren. He is a grinder for sure. He is a grinder. He's well, obviously he's got a very good editor as well, Jesse, who they work pretty well together, getting good content out, and I think he did it the right way. Like he did it to where he was probably losing money at first, just based on like he wanted to make sure it was a good product. He wanted to kind of do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And when it came out, it looked great. It sounded great. Everything was good quality. And I think that is what got people coming back. And he's honestly 100% himself on there. Like I think that is the easiest thing to do as well, because it's you don't have to fake something. You don't have to act a certain way. Like he literally is 100% himself on the camera. If he's in a bad mood, you see it. If he's in a good mood, you see it. Yeah. So, yeah, it's good. Whether good bowling, bad bowling, he shows it all. He does the same thing with the ball reviews, explains as best he can, and tries to give you a broad overview of what the things are. So, yeah, he's done a really good job with that channel. It's awesome to see it grow, because I remember when he first started it. And to be able to see where it is now, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, great quality stuff. I mean, I would highly recommend it. And if he ever taught a class on that, boy, I'd be all ears.
Yeah. Maybe I'll pitch that idea to him, and I'll take 10%.
No, take 10%, but just let him know the FEF had the idea first, right?
All right, I'll pitch that. I'll add you into the contract.
Awesome. Derek wants to know if you know Skeeter Coe.
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then he says, better YouTuber, FEF or Derek Michaud? Can we tie on that one?
I'll let you argue that one out.
Yeah, I think that's a good tie, because Derek's stuff is great. So you mentioned JJ, and I actually reached out to him. He didn't hear back. I'm assuming because he was making yet another PBA 50 show.
Yeah.
But what I would have asked him was about what Commissioner Clark floated to me, because he's kind of the connoisseur of dessert, right? I mean, and I'm glad Tom said that, because now I don't have to ask. I can just sit back and let you take this.
Yes. Yeah. JJ, it is Mama Vi cookie approved. He is very pleased with whenever he gets the cookies. So we get big thumbs up while he's got a mouthful of cookies. So yeah, it's definitely approved. That's for sure. Yeah. I always joke everywhere I go that my mom's more famous than I am. And I really don't think it's a joke anymore. Yeah. kind of was at first. And I was like, actually, there's a lot more people that ask about my mom wherever I am than they ask about me. So, which is completely fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is world famous for her cookies. I mean, it's crazy to see, when she shows up at a PBA stop, how many people just turn their head and they immediately just go walk to her because they know they're going to say hi because they know she's got some cookies waiting there. And so I always joke with her, that's the reason I have so many friends.
There you go.
They want to have access to the cookies. They know if they do me wrong, they're not going to get any more cookies. So
That's probably why she gets so many name drops on the telecast too, right?
yeah, must be. Yeah, that's what I feel like. The announcers are happy when I make TV shows. They don't care if I win. They just want me to get to the show, just so that they know that my mom's going to be there and they'll have some cookies. So
yeah, for sure. Kristen says, "What about Brad and Kyle's YouTube channel?"
the OGs.
Yeah.
The OGs, right?
Fantastic.
You can't go wrong with the OGs. I mean, they paved the way for where bowling YouTube is now, and I mean, it's so hard to keep up, with what they were doing. I mean, they were doing like so much. So, it seems like they kind of, settled a little bit, but at the same time, they're still making some good videos. But life happens, life comes up, different things come up, and they have different situations that they got to do differently, and now they're doing some camps and some clinics and running tournaments. So it would be it's just some different stuff that they're doing now, but at the same time, obviously when bowling season comes around, they're full blast, and they're always making some good videos, so you can never go wrong.
Great personalities, and another one where you're gonna
I think that's what makes their channel so cool too. Obviously you got two main characters on the channel, and they're similar but very, very different, and they're both enthusiastic and exciting about the channel, and they're very into it, but at the same time their personalities are also quite different. So it's funny to see, and obviously seeing the kind of the behind the scenes stuff as well. It's funny.
Yeah, good stuff for sure. Jay says, "Great interview, Fef, and thanks, Chris. You just earned a new fan tonight with a little."
Thank you, Jay.
One of these.
Appreciate it. Yeah, welcome to the club.
There you go. So that's probably a great place to go off the sheet. And that's when I ask you to challenge somebody else. Doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world. Doesn't have to be the worst bowler in the world, but somebody who's passionate about the sport and has a unique story to tell to come on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef. So Chris Vi, who would you like to see on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
Well, I mean, we were just talking about him, so I'm going to challenge my man Darren Tang. Come on the channel. I think you can dive deep into that YouTube algorithm, maybe get some tips and tricks. So, that's going to be my my challenge.
I love that because learning is great anytime, and B, I love interviewing content creators because you kind of feel that kinship, and even if the journey's a little different, it's cool to hear how folks got to where they are, and Darren has had massive success, so that would be fantastic. So Jeremy says, "How old were you when you first started bowling?" He was actually 1, and he discussed that at the beginning of the show. You can
go back and check it out.
Tune it back on rewind, and he talks all about it. Derek wants to know if you will come on his show.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the schedule lines up, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
it's all about scheduling. As long as I can make some time for it, it's no big deal.
I'll get you two connected offline, and we can go from there. Scott says he's seen you a lot at Turbo Expo a couple of years ago. You looked like you really enjoyed working with the kids, and thanks for your kindness and professionalism.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the nice words. Yeah. Remember up in Michigan, worked up that for Turbo, and it's always fun. I mean, I was very fortunate. I had like I said, a couple of times on here, I've had a really good support system around me. I was, fortunate to meet, some really good bowlers at a young age. Shannon Pluhowski grew up not too far away from me. Oh, yeah. So I had, the connection with her, and, through her met Tommy Jones, and, just kind of the whole domino effect of, I had a lot of really smart people in my corner for a very long time. And I know I was very fortunate for that. So, I'm trying to take what I've learned from them and just what I've learned from, some of the other really smart minds in the bowling industry, and, hopefully pass it along as much as I can so we can kind of get the knowledge spread down to even younger kids, and, watch them grow up a little bit quicker. And, we talked about the SYCs earlier, and it's crazy. I mean, these kids, how much they know at what a young age. And I mean, I had no idea any of this stuff at 18 or 20, rather, than watching this 12-year-old know how to, make ball changes, and, knows he needs to throw it slower and move. And it's really, really crazy, but it's so cool to see. And that's really why I enjoy doing it. And I'll continue to do it.
Sure. Makes everyone feel good about the future of the sport too. Jay says he's actually heard about Mama Vi's cookie prowess from a tour player on Fef's channel. I believe he's talking about Mallory Clark, who was on last week.
Oh, yeah.
And
we'll see her up in Maine.
Yeah, you will. Derek says, cookie for a beer. I will buy a beverage of your choice. I will be there after the clinic. Let's hang out. So,
well, don't think Mom's making the trip, so I'm not sure I'll have any cookies on hand. But if she happens to show up, we'll figure something out.
There you go. Yeah. Well, Chris, I want to be respectful of your time. It's been a long evening of talking bowling. Thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said, kind of a chance encounter in Indianapolis, and I'm really glad you came on because, boy, you've got an incredible story, and we're just looking forward to seeing the next chapter in Portland, Maine. Yeah,
I mean, very, very much appreciated for having me on, and I look forward to it. And I'll be watching some more episodes here in the future, and hopefully I'll see my man Darren on here and see what he's got to teach you, and maybe I'll be taking some notes so we can use it on our channel too. So.
There you go. Hey, continued success in that as well. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. It has been a blast coming at you. This is actually the final episode of Season 3. Season 4 is coming next week, our Season 4 premiere. I'll leave the guest a secret for now. It's coming up soon. You'll find out on the social channels. It'll be a good one. I'll just say, Jay, you might want to watch this one. It's coming up next week. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you again next time.